Hi, I'm Granny, and we're going down the rabbit hole of the Library of Alexandria. When I first heard about the library, my imagination ran wild, and it was a history series that included a steam powered door at the Library of Alexandria that would automatically open and close. That was around 2,250 years ago. So ever since then, I have kind of perked my ears up whenever I heard anything about the Library of Alexandria, just because it has always fascinated me. But for us to understand the library, I think we need to understand Alexander the Great, whose brainchild it was, his family, and his life. Alexander the Great's father, and from now on I'm just going to say Alexander, was born in Macedon, which was a state in Greece. And let me just say that I'm really grateful that his family dynamics is rare nowadays. And you can go down that rabbit hole yourself. People in power often did not die of old age. Philip II was born in 382 BC and was assassinated in 336 BC at the age of 46. At the time of Philip II, Macedon included modern-day Bulgaria, Albania, Serbia, Kosovo, and Syria. During this time, Persia repeatedly attacked Greece. In 490 and in 480 BC, the Persians attacked Greece, forcing some of the city-states to join forces to fight the Persians off. During these wars, the Persians burnt the sacred temples of the Athenian Acropolis. Two of the city-states instrumental in fighting the Persians at this time was Athens and Sparta. Athens was the naval power of Greece and also known as the center of democracy, art, drama, and philosophy. Sparta, which you're probably familiar with, was defined by austere militaristic culture with a formidable army. You probably have heard about the Battle of Thermopylae, which began in 480 BC between the Persians and the Greeks. And it is named after the mountain pass that the battle took place in. Modern scholars estimate the Spartans at the time of the invasion to be around 7,000. The Persians were numbered between 120,000 to 300,000. On the second day of the battle, Leonidas led the Spartans, and aware his forces would soon be outflanked and surrounded, dismissed the bulk of the Greek army and remained to guard their retreat, with 300 Spartans and 700 Thespians, not actors, but from the city of Thespia, in an ancient Greek city, I believe it's pronounced Boeotia, at the foot of the Mount Helicon. We know the battle results, and a couple of movies have been made about this battle. Philip II reigned as king of Macedon and then later Greece for 23 years, from 359 BC until his assassination. When Philip was born, Macedon was considered a backwater of Greece. As king, he redesigned the backwater into the strongest state in Greece by developing strong civil administrations and created an army with the latest and most sophisticated weaponry and tactics, which influenced Alexander. Philip had begun a war with Persia but was assassinated before he was successful. Alexander, though, used Philip's plans to conquer Persia. Persia included modern-day Turkey, Iran, Middle East, the Northern Rim, or the North Africa, Northern Rim along the Mediterranean, including Egypt, Pakistan, and Afghanistan. This period is now referred to as the Golden Age of Classical Greek, which was from 480 BC to 404 BC, defined as a time of peace, prosperity, and happiness. Alexander the Great's most influential teacher was his father, who took him on military campaigns and also to attend state business affairs. When Alexander was 10 to 13, determining which documents or sources you want to consider, a trader came to Philip II and offered a horse to him, but the handlers couldn't handle the horse. The horse wouldn't let anybody ride him, and according to the sources, Alexander asked if he could train the horse. He sensed that the horse was afraid for whatever reason and asked to be able to, and his father let him train the horse, which he did successfully. And Alexander ended up calling him Bucephalus, which means ox head. These sources continued with claiming that King Philip was so proud of Alexander's bravery over training Bucephalus that he said Macedonia is not big enough for Alexander. In 338 BC, Philip decided to put all of Greece under his power and started moving his army south, stopping just north of Sparta, and that's no surprise. He also started, Philip, to create the League of Corinth from 338 to 337, and this helped unify the Greek military under Philip with the goal of taking care of the ongoing threat of Persia and also the infighting of Greece. At 13 years of age, Alexander was sent to what was referred to as the School of Pages under Aristotle in Mysia, Greece. Aristotle inspired Alexander's passion for searching for knowledge, understanding, and also preserving knowledge. As a reminder, Aristotle was a student of Plato, who was a student of Socrates. Plato and Socrates believed our senses misled us and, quote, eternal unchanging truths which are known by the mind, not the senses. Aristotle turned this philosophy around and said, quote, it is through our senses our minds gather information. According to Aristotle, quote, educated men are much superior to uneducated men, as the living are to the dead. The fate of empires depends on the education of youth, which reminded me of Hitler and Chairman Mao because they directed a lot of their activities toward the youth. A lot of what we know about Aristotle is from the writings of Plutarch, who lived from 46 AD to 119 AD, and he was about 74 when he died. He was a Greek philosopher, historian, biographer, and priest at the temple of Apollo in Delphi, which is where he died. In 340 BC, Alexander was 16 when his father left him as regent when a Thracian tribe revolted. Thrace is an area in Southeast Europe that sits between modern-day Bulgaria, Greece, and Turkey. Alexander organized his forces and ended the revolt at 16. All right, Alexander was considered one of the greatest military generals of all time. He was 20 when his father was assassinated, and he became king, and I would recommend you going down the rabbit hole of Philip II's assassination. That was pretty interesting, but anyway. There are many documents describing all the battles that Alexander fought, and he was always in the front leading his men, not following. And if you go and study his campaigns, many of the people that he battled, the kings or the generals, were generally like safe on a hilltop or behind enemy lines or behind his own men, their own men. Alexander was different. He led his men. So in that way, he is really to be admired. Bucephalus carried Alexander through all the campaigns until he was killed in a battle in 326 BC. It is said that Bucephalus was buried in a city Alexander founded called Bucephala, which is modern-day Jhelum, Pakistan. Alexander was seriously wounded more than 9 times, including, but not limited to, broken limbs, skull fractures, a catapult bolt through his shoulder, and I think the most lethal was when an arrow pierced his lung. And go down that rabbit hole because that was really a gruesome injury. And it wasn't that long after that event that it is said that he died of a fever, and I some kind of think that it might have to do with that lung injury. He founded more than 20 cities that bore his name, and the most successful was Alexandria of Egypt in 332 BC, which was designed on a grid system. And if you were to look at any of the videos of today's Alexandria, the streets are really wide. And I think that had a lot to do with the transportation that was used during the time that Alexandria was created, because, anyway, go down that road yourself. Anyway, as a lover of knowledge, Alexander dreamed his city to be where people could live and learn, gathering books from all over his kingdom and surrounding countries. He wanted his library to include all knowledge from everywhere. While in Babylon in 323 BC, not long after he was wounded with the arrow in his lung, Alexander was planning a trade route to Egypt, building a fleet to settle the Persian Gulf, long-term foundations of cities, city administrations, and political cultures. He was a planner, not just a military strategist. He was really a remarkable individual, with all of his frailties too. Common at the time, when a great person died, a sarcophagus was created. A sarcophagus is a stone coffin decorated with carvings. When Alexander died in Babylon, his sarcophagus was sent to Greece, but along the way it was hijacked and supposedly went to Egypt, where it disappeared. So, next time in episode 2 on the Library of Alexandria, we're going to see why I think the Library of Alexandria is similar to black holes. So see you next Thursday as Granny goes down the rabbit hole of the Library of Alexandria. Thank you.